On their wedding night, the man abandoned his wife and left without looking back, leaving Charlotte alone in the bridal chamber. It was absurd. Curled up in the corner, she couldn't understand what she had done wrong to make him leave so shamelessly.
I should have gone over the wall,
She thought, but there was no turning back. She stayed awake until dawn, then got out of bed and rang the morning bell. Servants rushed in with toiletries, dressing her up like a doll, nightgown off, an extravagant, cumbersome dress on. Afterward, she was led to the dining table, expecting to see her husband. But the seat at the other end remained empty, without even a set of tableware. The only ones dining with her were countless respectful servants. She had married loneliness. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner were the same. George never appeared in her life. Day after day, she grew tired of it and asked her personal guards if any entertainment had been arranged. Art exhibitions? Music?
Your Majesty, there is nothing in your engagement diary.
How can there be? There is nothing in my engagement diary.
You are currently enjoying the privacy of the first days of marriage, Your Majesty.
Charlotte found it ridiculous. What kind of honeymoon was this? Worse, she wasn't allowed to meet outsiders. With nothing else to do, she thought about reading, but as soon as she hinted at it, her guard took the liberty of interrupting her. Looking at the books placed before her, she felt no interest. How long would this prisoner-like life last? No one saw her suffering, as if she had been forgotten in a corner of the world. She was miserable, on the verge of madness. Forced to sit at the table once more, she listlessly cut into her unappetizing food until her patience ran dry. Throwing down her utensils, she decided to take action. She stormed into George's palace, only to be told he wasn't there. After pressing for an answer, a servant hesitantly revealed,
"The observatory, Your Majesty."
Charlotte stopped them from following and walked there alone, her determined figure resembling a warrior. Pushing open the heavy wooden door, she found George studying the stars through a telescope. So this was why he neglected her. She had assumed he would be at a brothel like most men, but he wasn't. That only confused her more. Why would he rather stare at stars than be with her? He wouldn't even argue with her. Her outburst didn't faze him. Instead, he simply sent her home. Heartbroken, Charlotte returned to her gilded prison. Even their personal guards were troubled, unsure how to reconcile them. Maybe making the first move would help. At his tall guard's suggestion, George sent her a handwritten letter. Reading it, Charlotte thought he had come around, that he'd finally spend the rest of their honeymoon with her. She ran back excitedly, only to find he had merely sent her a puppy to keep her company. Looking at the strange creature, she felt utterly disappointed.
That is a deformed bunny.
She turned and left, disheartened. Even the shorter guard was baffled by the king's thinking. When Charlotte requested to see her maids again, he chose to turn a blind eye and called for Lady Dan, someone of the same complexion, hoping they'd have something in common. Over afternoon tea, they vented about their husbands. The moment Lady Dan learned the queen hadn't consummated her marriage, she stopped talking, gestured for a pen and paper, and sketched out an explanation of the matter, sharing some marital advice. Seeing Charlotte still unsatisfied with her husband, she sighed and pointed to the dog in the guard's arms.
It is a Pomeranian. Your deformed bunny. It is a dog. A very rare and purebred Pomeranian.
That's a Pomeranian, not a deformed rabbit. It's an extremely rare purebred. The implication was clear. George valued her far more than she had assumed. He truly cared. With Lady Dan's reassurance, Charlotte's withering heart revived. Perhaps she should give George more time, and herself a chance too. The next morning, there was someone unexpected at her breakfast table. She dared not hope for too much, but George personally invited her to his observatory that night to share what he loved. Maybe she could understand him. She couldn't refuse. Standing by the telescope, gazing at the vast starry sky, she felt a stir in her heart.
I'm a small dot in the universe. Keeps one humble. Being king is a hazard. My world has been made to revolve around me, and it has made me selfish.
George's sincerity deeply moved Charlotte. For the first time since their marriage, their hearts were truly close. That night, everything happened naturally. Their wedding night had finally come to pass. Through a crack in the door, the little princess saw her brother signing a document with foreign envoys, selling her away. Shocked, she knocked over a statue. There was no escape. She was sent off in a carriage for her arranged marriage. On the slow, swaying journey, she sat stiffly against the seat. Her brother found her behavior strange, and asked the question on everyone's mind.
The gown sits atop a bespoke underpinning made of whalebone.
Whalebone.
Beauty has its price. Corsets made from whale bones were extremely fragile. One wrong move, and they could pierce her chest. Learning this, her brother wisely chose silence and focused on the road ahead. They traveled through the night, finally arriving at the British royal court by morning. Walking down the long corridor, she endured the scrutiny of the Queen Dowager and her ministers. The old, sharp-eyed queen circled Charlotte, assessing her figure. Broad shoulders, a sturdy waist, and full hips, all signs of a woman fit for childbirth. Satisfied, she nodded, though there was one flaw. Charlotte's skin was darker than ideal. The nobles might object. A crisis meeting was called to prevent gossip.
And the king is the sovereign head of the Church of England and ruler of this great land.
With this in mind, the Queen Dowager decided to shift responsibility onto him while expanding the wedding guest list to emphasize his recognition of the new queen. After finalizing the strategy, she gave orders for Charlotte to try on her wedding gown.
Oh, no need. I bought my wedding gown. It is quite a perfect fit.
Our gown is traditional, simple. It will be better.
Their generational divide became apparent. The weaker party, Charlotte, had no choice but to comply. Led by the guards, she went to try on her dress. On the way, she sought information about the king. In this blind marriage, she didn't even know what he looked like. But the guards kept their distance. She motioned for one to come closer, but he ignored her. So she tried another approach, suddenly stopping while he was walking, catching him off guard. Startled, the guard nervously answered her questions, then immediately stepped back 5 paces. Royal protocol required them to maintain this distance, not too close to disturb their master, yet near enough to respond instantly. The strict formality unsettled Charlotte, and the servant's reluctance to discuss the king made her suspicious.
Is he dull? Not very smart? Mentally slow? I can work on those. You can tell me.
You're going to have wonderful children together, Your Highness.
The awkward deflection only deepened her unease. She had to escape. Using the excuse of needing the bathroom, she dismissed everyone and sneaked into the back garden. Lifting her heavy gown, she climbed onto the trellis, ready to flee the wedding. "Hello, miss. Need some help?" A stranger's voice startled her. She spun around, frantically thinking of an excuse, but the man kept asking what she was doing. Annoyed, she gave up and bluntly asked how to climb over the wall, then started complaining about her fiancé. Everyone avoided talking about him. He was probably a monster or hideous. The man chuckled indulgently and playfully admitted,
Hello, Charlotte. I'm George.
She was mortified, talking bad about someone right to their face. Her luck was unbelievable. Flustered, she quickly lifted her skirt to curtsy, but George didn't reprimand her. Instead, he smiled warmly and whispered, "The title of king is greater than the man himself. I was born into this life by chance. As my wife, you can ignore the title, just call me George." His gentle voice melted her heart. George was exactly the husband she had imagined. Suddenly, the arranged marriage didn't seem so bad.
Promise you, I am neither a troll nor a beast. Just George.
His humor struck her heart, and her desire to flee vanished. When he extended his hand, she took it without hesitation, fingers intertwined, and returned to the wedding. The guests were already seated, eagerly awaiting the bride and groom. Hand in hand with her brother, Charlotte walked toward the man she would spend her life with. Before their loved ones, they exchanged rings and vows, becoming lifelong partners. No matter wealth or hardship, sickness or health, they would never let go of each other. Charlotte truly believed they would walk this path together forever. But reality would prove her terribly wrong. After the wedding banquet, the newlyweds saw off all their guests. When finally alone, George brought her before a magnificent palace.
It is your house.
It is my house. What do you mean? We are married? Are we not supposed to do what married people do?
Are you demanding I perform my marital duty to you?
Halfway through their honeymoon, they finally shared their first night together. Parting in the corridor, each retreated to prepare. Charlotte, with her maid's help, removed her makeup, presenting her purest self to greet her beloved.